Before the game of Sorcery begins, you draw 6 cards. You draw 3 sides and you draw 3 spells. You can then decide to mulligan whatever you want. So you can mulligan up to 3 cards. Let's say you want to mulligan 2 sides and you want to mulligan 1 spell. You do so by putting them at the bottom of your respective decks and then drawing that many from that deck again. So 2 sides and 1 spell. This is now our opening hand, and we play the game from here. We have 2 different types of sites in Sorcery. We have land sites and we have water sites. Land sites are any site that doesn't have a water threshold on it. So the free city right here is a land site, and the step right here is also a land site. While the troll bridge is a water site because it has a water threshold on it. And the same goes for the aqueduct that has a water threshold on it as well. So that makes these 2 water sites, and these 2 are land sites. Here we have 2 sites. We have a water site and a land site. Units with burrowing, such as this unit, can move under the site by tapping and moving. Units with submerge can move under water sites by tapping and moving. And units with Voidwalk can exist in the middle where there is no sites at all. Any unit without burrowing, submerged or Voidwalk that is in the respected zones, they die. If we place the Sorcerer here in the middle, he is now adjacent to all the sites you see. So the Sorcerer is right here, the side to the left of him, the side above him, and to the right and below him, and the one he's standing on, they are all adjacent to the Sorcerer. Now I've placed some more sites down because I want to explain what nearby is. So nearby are all the sites you see here. The Sorcerer is nearby all these sites, so it's the 3x3 grid that he's standing in the middle of. In order to attack something, be it a site or an enemy unit, you have to have an untapped creature. In this case we have a root spider and a salamander. So if the root spider is the one attacking, he could attack the site for 2 damage, or he could attack the salamander again for 2 damage. By moving over, tapping and declaring its attack. Let's say we have this situation here. We have a root spider and a salamander. The root spider is going to attack the undertow right here. It's going to do so by moving over, tapping and declaring its attack. Now you can defend with your salamander by doing the same thing, by moving over and tapping it to defend. Now the salamander would take all the damage and the root spider would take 1 damage, so the salamander would die. The root spider would take 1 damage surviving, and the undertow would take 0 damage. You can only defend incoming attacks on sites you are adjacent to, meaning that if this wind sylph were to attack this site right here, the kite archer could move to defend, tapping and moving over. You have to be adjacent to the site you are defending, and you can only move 1 space in order to defend. Minions in Sorcery have summoning sickness when you first cast them, meaning that you have to wait until it's your opponent's turn before you can actually use them. You have a Berserker, the opponent has a root spider and a lava salamander. They're on 3 different sites, and the Berserker is interesting in that way that whenever he can attack a unit, he must attack a unit. And he also says untap Berserker whenever he attacks and kills an enemy minion. In this case he would have to attack the root spider because he's adjacent to it. So he moves over to attack the root spider, dealing 3 damage to the root spider, killing the root spider. The root spider deals 2 damage back to the Berserker, not killing it. There we go. Then he must untap, and he does so. Now he has the situation where he actually is adjacent to the salamander, and now he has to attack the salamander. So he moves over to attack the salamander, dealing 3 damage to the salamander, killing the salamander. The salamander deals 1 damage back to the Berserker, killing the Berserker because he already had 2 damage marked from the root spider. So they both die. Grapple Shot says, an ally shoots a projectile. If it hits a unit, the ally is dragged to that location and may strike the unit when it arrives. So if the sorcerer right here were to cast Grapple Shot in this direction, towards the basilisk, he would now be dragged to the basilisk, and when he gets there, he would have the opportunity to attack the basilisk, dealing 1 damage to it without the basilisk attacking back. Let's say we have this situation. The opponent has a basilisk and a scorpion, and you have a sorcerer. You want to kill the basilisk using magic missiles, shooting 3 projectiles in the same direction, 1 at a time, each deal 1 damage. You would have to move the sorcerer to this location here, because if you didn't, you would hit the scorpion with 2 magic missiles killing it, and only 1 projectile would hit the basilisk. Let's say your opponent has a basilisk, you have a scorpion, and you have a sorcerer. If you were to try and cast magic missiles towards the basilisk, trying to kill it from this position, the scorpion you would ignore. So any units you have on the starting location when casting missiles, you can ignore them. Let's say the opponent has a basilisk and a scorpion. You have a sorcerer, and you want to kill either of them with magic missiles. Magic missiles shoot 3 projectiles in the same direction, 1 at a time, each deal 1 damage. So if you shoot it in this direction, you would hit either the basilisk or the scorpion. And it's your choice which one you want to hit. Because there are multiple units here, you can decide which one you want to hit. So you could deal 3 damage to the basilisk, 0 damage to the scorpion. You could deal 2 damage to the scorpion, 1 damage to the basilisk. Or you could deal something like 2 damage to the basilisk and 1 damage to the scorpion. Let's say you want to cast a snowball. The sorcerer here is going to cast a snowball from this location and cast it in this direction. It would shoot a projectile, and you can imagine the snowball flying down this direction, that it's going to pick up everything along the way and stop at the last location because there are no more sites it can move onto. It would then deal damage to all the units in the snowball equal to the amount of units in the snowball. In this case, both would die because the salamander only has 1 HP and the root spider has 2, and they would both take 2 damage from the snowball. If you were to create a foot soldier token using a simple village, paying 1 mana with its Genesis ability, you would now have a token that is a 1-powered minion that you can use to defend, attack, and do everything else that a normal minion can do. The difference between this and another minion is that if a normal minion, a card that is, would go to the cemetery, it would stay there, while this would not stay there. It would be removed from the game. Genesis abilities are not May abilities, unless it's stated on the card itself. Like the Simple Village says you may use 1 mana to summon a foot soldier token here on the village. This Red Desert, however, says deal 1 damage to each minion on top target nearby site, and that is not a May ability, so you actually have to trigger this and do it. Let's talk about lances. So one of these units has a lance, meaning that it's going to strike first and dealing +1 damage. Then the lance breaks. So if the Thankless Squire is attacked by the Basilisk or the Basilisk is attacked by the Thankless Squire, the Basilisk is going to hit the Thankless Squire before the Thankless Squire can hit back. Killing the Thankless Squire, not taking any damage, removing the lance from the Basilisk because the lance breaks. What if the Basilisk has 2 lances on it? Well, then both lances break, he gets +2 damage. What if they both have a lance on them? Well, then they both hit each other like normal combat damage would do, and both lances break. The Thankless Squire is dealing 2 damage to the Basilisk, and the Basilisk is dealing 4 damage to the Thankless Squire. Let's say I've just cast Thankless Squire. Thankless Squire comes into play with 3 lances equipped onto him, and he is immobile. He has, like other units, the ability to drop equipment and artifacts, and you can drop equipment and artifacts once per turn, and you can pick up equipment and artifacts once per turn. You can't do this after you've been in combat with a unit, but in this case we have not been in combat, I've just cast it. So we are going to drop the lances so my longbowmen can pick up the lances. Well, what we do is basically we just transfer the lances over to the longbowmen. Now the longbowman has 3 lances equipped onto him and is ready to go to combat. Let's say you have a body of water of 2. These 2 sides make up the body of water, and you have a giant shark in the body of water. Whenever a unit enters or moves between sides in this body of water, the giant shark is going to move to that unit and fight it. So if a kite archer would enter one of these sides, the giant shark would move to that side, fight it, dealing 5 damage to the kite archer, and the kite archer would deal 2 damage back to the giant shark, killing the kite archer. This works for both your units and the enemy units, so watch out that you're not killing your own units when you're moving into a body of water with a giant shark in it. When casting Whirlwind, you choose clockwise or counterclockwise. Then you move each unit and artifact in that direction. So if you choose clockwise, we move it like so. And if we had chosen counterclockwise, we would move him the other way around, like so. This Vyron here has the keyword Airborne, meaning that it can move and attack nearby sites. So not only can it attack adjacent sites, but it can also move up here to attack a nearby site. Airborne units are special in the way that they cannot be attacked by units that do not have ranged, or however you can defend against them as they have to land in order to attack. Auras are cast in the intersection between 4 sites, like so. They affect all the sites. There are a few exceptions though. This wall of fire right here is only cast between 2 sites, and you have to control one of them. Waveshaper has the ability to flood a site near a body of water you control. It taps all the minions without submerge there, and they don't untap next time they would. So you would flood this site right here. Any minions without submerge would be tapped, and they would not untap the next time they would untap. You can actually do this on sites continuously. So if the site is already flooded, maybe you have used the ability already on this free city right here, you can do it again the next turn, making sure that the opponent's units do not untap. Sylph is an air spellcaster. She's airborne, and after she casts a magic spell, she may push a unit here 1 step. Meaning that if you were to cast magic missiles here with Sylph, you would cast the spell. Before it resolving, you would push the unit 1 step. Let's say this Vyron is the one being pushed, and then you would resolve the magic missiles. Skirmishers of Mu are interesting because they can shoot a range strike on the path they are moving, meaning that if they were to move from this location to this location, they could perform a ranged strike on either the Sylph here or the Vyron. More than that, they are able to attack at the same time. So if we were to attack the Vyron, because we have ranged, we can attack an airborne unit. So if we were to attack the Vyron and shoot it, we would actually kill the Vyron because we were dealing 6 damage to it. If you have a unit, in this case a kite archer, and your opponent has some fairies, and they choose to move their fairies onto the side with the kite archer, you can then tap to intercept the fairies, and then they fight each other, both dealing 2 damage to each other, and they both die. You can use this method of interception on any unit that moves onto a site with a unit that you have that is untapped. Units with lethal Whenever they deal damage to another creature, that creature dies. So if you deal 1 point of damage to this pirate ship over here, that pirate ship will die if the unit has lethal. So the Scorpion can move over, attack the pirate ship, and both die. Many spells in Sorcery has an origin. So in order to cast them, you need a Spellcaster. By default, your avatar is a Spellcaster, but if you want your avatar to be in a safe place, then you need another Spellcaster. So let's say I want to kill the Scorpion right here, and we have an Apprentice Wizard. He's able to cast spells. So I could, in theory, cast this Firebolt right here in the direction of the Scorpion to kill the Scorpion. Because he is a Spellcaster, he can cast spells that has an origin, and the origin would be the Spellcaster. Units for Stealth are interesting because they themselves cannot be targeted by spells, they cannot be targeted by projectiles, they cannot be targeted by attacks, and they cannot be targeted in general. So anything that says target on it can't actually touch a creature with stealth on it. They lose stealth, however, whenever they attack something. So if I were to attack this free city right here, the rogue would lose stealth permanently. Units with Voidwalk can be cast directly to the void and can live in the void. That means that you can cast it on any square that does not have a sight on it, even if it's far away from your other sites, and that can be great advantage, especially early in the game, as you can almost always cast a unit with Voidwalk next to the opponent's avatar. Waterbound means that if a unit with Waterbound were to move outside the body of water, it would get instantly disabled. So if you were to move to attack this side right here, we would get disabled before we get to attack, because we first move and then we attack. And disable happens instantly, and therefore it can't attack.